Longtime friend of this podcast, Steve Sims, aka the man that can, whose clients include Elton, Elon, and Sir Richard, has one piece of proven advice for all of us, and that is go for stupid. Ignore it, and you and your business is destined for a life of mediocrity. Listen to it, and you just may achieve the ridiculous. It's a strategically stupid episode 650 of the 14-year-old award-winning small business big marketing podcast.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Timbo Reid.
And welcome back to your weekly dose of get out of your own way marketing. That'll become clearer very shortly. I'm your host, Timbo Reid, and I have an insatiable curiosity for uncovering marketing ideas that help businesses just like yours, yours, to grow. And I do that through a weekly in-depth conversation with a successful business founder who has walked the path before us. You, infinitely more importantly, are a motivated business owner, and you're ready to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it absolutely deserves to be. As per usual, team, there is marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in. A very, very quick welcome to Studio Hawk. Harry Sanders and his team are now partners of this podcast. Harry, I believe, is Australia's leading SEO expert, and I'm so proud and honoured to have them on board as a partner, because I only take partners who I know have the interests of small business owners like you and I at heart, and Studio Hawk is absolutely one of them. If you want to get on page one of Google for key search terms, then have a little listen or have a look at studiohawk.com.au/Timbo, where there are some exclusive offers, including 50% off their amazing SEO course, plus a whole lot of other stuff. I encourage you to have a look. A little bit more about them later. Let's get on with the show. Okay, Steve Sims. If you're a long-time listener of this podcast, you know who Steve Sims is, but let me give you a quick background. Steve, up until recently, owned a leading concierge agency out of LA called Bluefish. Basically, they had a list of 5,000 clients, or members as they called them, the likes of George Clooney, Elton John, Elon Musk, Sir Richard, and basically whatever they needed, he could get them. I came across Steve one day many, many years ago when my oldest boy, Jack, said, "Hey, Dad, you're not going to believe it. James Cameron can take you down in a submersible to look at the Titanic." Now, I said to my son, Jack, "Hey, whoever's selling tickets to that, I want to interview them." It turned out to be Steve Sims. We got him on the blower. Episode 236 was the first time we met Steve, and he shared this incredibly simple and fun and effective referral marketing idea. Plus, he told us all about Bluefish. He explained how he organised a dinner at the feet of Michaelangelo's David statue, and he had Andrea Bocelli singing between courses. He's organised tickets to Victoria's Secret's ball. He's enabled someone to do the tango with Angelina Jolie. This guy can organise anything. I got him back on episode 452 because I wanted to ask him how he got Elton John as a client. So that episode all of a sudden became a focus on how do you get past the Dobermans and get to the decision maker. He explained how he does that. Steve's also done segments on the show helping us all to get shit done. He's an absolute action taker, as I called him at the start. The man that can is his sort of nom de plume, if you like. Now he's got a new book out, or it's 6 months old, 7 months old now. It's called Go for Stupid, The Art of Achieving Ridiculous Goals. And in it, Steve teaches you how to ignore what everyone else thinks and how and why to go for big, stupid, ridiculous goals. From organising dinners, like I said, in front of Michelangelo's David. He secured a tour of the SpaceX facility led by Elon Musk himself. His accomplishments are so far-reaching, and they always start with the same questions. How far can I take this? And what would make this a stupid achievement? I love it. You're going to learn all about going for stupid, plus you're going to discover how to get out of your own way if you're in it. the right questions to ask when starting any new project in your business, the habits of highly successful people. This guy has worked with them all. He's seen them. He knows their habits. He shares them with us. Plus, Steve describes these things called speakeasies, which he runs, and he takes paying clients into like the world's most famous brothel, into a level 4 high security prison. That's the highest level you can get for prison. He takes them in there. He does these amazing things with groups of entrepreneurs to get them thinking. And I love that. And maybe, just maybe, there might be a speakeasy run by someone locally in Australia. More on that at the end of the episode. Oh, and one last thing. Despite Steve's Pommy accent and a network of people any of us would kill for, Steve looks like he's just stepped off a Harley Davidson and is ready to rumble. And I know Steve won't mind me saying that. He's the first to admit his looks are deceiving. I started off by asking Steve why he loves being laughed at so much. Steve Sims, finally, brother, welcome back to the Small Business Big Marketing Podcast.
It's an honour and a pleasure.
Now, Steve, I'll start by asking you, why do you love being laughed at?
For a start, when someone says, you can't do that, there's something inside us weird entrepreneurs that straight away fuels us to actually complete it, isn't there? You know, if you're stood around someone and you say, hey, I'm going to do this, and they go, yes, you can. Yes, I'm sure you're going to. Then, yeah, you go for it. But if they turn around and go, don't be stupid, mate, you could never pull that off. You get it done by the end of that day. So I like to do it for two reasons. One, because it actually fuels me. And two, because today in this world, we're actually not scared of failing. We're scared of being laughed at. And I find that quite ridiculous. So I like to kind of like go against the curve there.
Interesting. Yeah, it's not so much a laugh at story, this one, but one of the blokes I ocean swim with each morning is a senior A380 pilot for one of the big Middle Eastern airlines.
Okay.
Been around a very, very long time. And he's just retired. And I said, are you missing flying? And he said, yes and no. More no, because everything you do these days in the cockpit, every conversation you have, every button you push, every move you make is being recorded somehow. And it's the world we live in. It's like, I think the reason we don't like being laughed at is because everyone's got a frigging camera on their phone. Oh, yeah. And everyone's looking for the next, viral video.
Well, we've got TV shows just on people walking into walls and falling over and hurting themselves. There's a story, I'm not going to plug it, but I wrote this story about this woman in a place called Glendale, which is just outside of Los Angeles, a big shopping mall. And this woman, I apologize for everyone, I'm going to be disrespectful, but she's one of the largest women I've ever seen in my life. Mm-hmm. And she had these bags in her hand and she tripped. She was so large, she wasn't athletic enough to be able to kind of twist herself. But more importantly, she had these bags, so she couldn't move her hands fast enough to let go of the bags and protect herself. And this poor woman went down on the side of her face. Now, there were two guys in front of me that rushed to help her. I rushed to help her, and we tried to roll her up. Large woman, 300-something pound. We rolled her over carefully, big red smack on the side of her face. That was definitely bruised. I'm sure she was hurt. I was feeling terrible. But I started pulling all the bags into her because she'd been shopping, including her handbag splayed out. We're pulling all of these things into her. And as she starts getting consciousness, she starts prairie dogging. She starts kind of looking around her. And I said to her, look, don't worry. All of your stuff's here. And very unelegantly, we were literally stacking them between her splayed legs so no one was stealing her stuff.
Yeah.
And she turned around and all she said was, no. I just want to make sure no one was videoing that.
Oh, goodness me.
This woman, I guarantee you, the following day was in pain. I hope she hadn't broken anything in her face, but she went down on her face. It was like listening to a piece of steak hitting the floor. And all she could be concerned about was someone laughing at her. And that was pretty bad.
Sign of the times.
Yeah.
It's sort of very well for you to say you like being laughed at and that we should put ourselves in positions of being laughed at more. Mm-hmm. Steve, you're a gruff Englishman living in LA. You don't mind a punch on. You don't mind bringing the fight up to yourself. You've been a bouncer in previous lives, a bricklayer. So being laughed at, Steve Sims, that's all right. But what about all the business owners listening whose balls are on the line, excuse the French, and are genuinely thinking, I can't afford to be laughed at. I'm having a red hot crack, and anything like that's just going to kill my character, kill my spirit.
I'm going to call bullshit, okay, straight off the bat.
Unlike you?
Yeah. You think about every businessman in the planet today that you would love to have on this podcast, okay? Let's go through them. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk.
All of them.
Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Zuckerberg. Every single one of those people stands out. Every one of those people. Look at Elon Musk purchasing Twitter, going up into space, disrupting the banking industry. You have Richard Branson disrupting the aircraft industry. Every single one of those people I've just mentioned was laughed at, publicly humiliated, is still ridiculed whenever possible. But every entrepreneur on the planet reveres this person, and that person does things differently. They don't sit at home going, oh, I'm going to disrupt the banking industry, but hang on a minute, I know nothing about it, so I won't touch it.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos says, I'm going to underprice absolutely everything I can until I have the dominant market share, and then I'm going to go back up. And that's what he's done. Now, who are the richest, most powerful people in the world? The people that, when we were kids, we wanted to be rock stars. Now, when you're a kid, you want to be Mark Zuckerberg. You want to be Bill Gates. You want to be Elon Musk. You want to disrupt an industry and not worry about anyone ridicule or laughing at you by releasing a cryptocurrency or going up into space or coming up with meta. These people are icons to us because they dared to stand out and be different.
Never a true word spoken, Simsy. Rockstar wise, I still want to be one, and I want to be the late Michael Hutchence. Just for the record, what about you, mate? You'd be something. You'd be a ZZ Top or a Motorhead.
I've got it. I think so, but let's be serious. That cat was cool as hell.
Which one?
In Excess.
Michael Hutchence. Oh my God! Don't even start.
That guy. No, I would say that if you're going to do a top three, just guy that just had too much call for school, that would be a cat in the list.
He had it, mate. Just to end that conversation about being laughed at, one of my favourite books is The Four Agreements. Four agreements that you have with yourself to live your life, and the first one for me is don't take anything personally. So if you can sort of live by that, then it's pretty powerful to really honour that and truly not take anything personally.
You can extend that. Today's world is one of sarcasm and insults and no recourse. Now, back in our day, if I said something to the wrong person that upset him, if I walked into a pub and I looked at a woman and I went, you look fat in that dress, I'm going to know she doesn't like me because her boyfriend just kicked 2 tons of shit out of me and I'm laid on my back. But now, how many people go onto the internet and they go on a social and you go, you look stupid, you think you're smart, oh, look at you, you're full of yourself. They make a comment and then go about their day. They have no care that they may have upset yours.
Yeah.
And then also on top of that, and this is one of those things that's going to get me cancelled, poor people are really noisy and they love to scream hate. And I've often said that the people that are screaming hate at me, 9 times out of 10 can't afford me and they've got nothing better else to do. I'm always getting things like, how do you sleep with yourself at night, spending that millionaire's money and going out to there are poor people on, they don't know what I donate to, they don't know what I support.
Exactly.
But they want to yell. Today we've got people, because they can vocalize that ignorance quicker, they do it without forethought.
Yeah, well said. Steve, you have worked with some impressive people. The conversations we've had over the time have revealed that. In fact, you and I did one episode many years ago, how to get Elton John as a client, because you had Elton John as a client. You'll be about my 651st interview with successful founders and business owners. One thing that I think links them all, if there's a number of things that you can sort of link them. One is they're action takers. The other thing is their confidence in putting something to market that is only half finished. So the minimum viable product thing, and then let the market report back, right? You've had clients like Elton John, Elon Musk, Richard Branson, to name a few, and then there'd be a whole lot of others in that league whose names we don't even know. What's the one or two things that you've noticed that link all them from a successful habit point of view?
You just pulled it. And in fact, we were talking earlier about Jay Abraham. Jay Abraham paid me the greatest compliment I've ever received.
Mate, he gave you so many.
He's rather nice. He said to me once, he said, Sims, you've got a greater ICANN than an IQ. And anyone that I've ever... Yeah, I did. Anyone that's done anything wonderful has conceived, released, and then worked off of that feedback. There are way too many people that go, I've got this idea, I'm going to plan it to perfection. Knowing the perfection never exists, they plan it to death, and it never gets released. Or they get somewhere and then someone else releases a half-baked idea and takes the market share.
Yes.
So the whole point, and that's where our ability to amplify and distribute is so quick today. We can post something now. This interview could be posted now, and a family in Korea and Seattle could be listening to it at the same time. We've never had a moment in our life where we can distribute at light speed. So if you go out there and go, hey, I'm now producing socks for dogs. And while me and you may go, well, that's a daft idea. How many families out there that are going to go, hang on a minute, I live in snowy areas, I live in dirty areas, my dog's got some kind of infection on his feet, having socks on it, that's a brilliant, how do I get a pair? You can do market research in 3 nanoseconds today. You don't have to have a storefront. You don't have to invest in even producing the socks. You literally can have a concept and get it out there before your coffee's got cold and know whether or not you've got that viable idea. But people spend too much time trying to polish perfection, and it's not there.
As they say, you can't polish a turd, but you can put glitter on it.
Yeah. And I'm sure someone would still buy it.
That's right. Now, speaking of turds, actually, that's a very poor segue because you've written
I don't know where that's going to go.
It's actually about to go to the book that you put out last year called Going for Stupid.
Nice.
I wasn't calling it a turd, but
comparing it to a turd, all right.
Socks for dogs are big. Going for stupid, what do you even mean by that before we explore some examples?
So the title of the book, Go for Stupid, The Art of Achieving Ridiculous Goals, going for stupid was a mindset position that we used to put ourselves in when I ran Bluefish, the concierge firm. And what we used to do then was viable and made us stand out, and today is critical. What we used to do at the time was we realized that in order for us to be in business, we could never complete a transaction. And we used to challenge our office that. So when a client would phone up and go, hey, I want front row tickets to see Elton John, we would listen to it, and then we would sit around on a table and we would go, okay, how can we make this stupid? What can we possibly do that's going to make this? Well, hang on, you want front row tickets. How about if I get you a actual piano lesson with Elton? You know, how about if I get you on stage at one of his concerts? How about if I get you backstage? How about if I get you dinner? How can I take the request and take it into a stupid ridiculous? Now, if I said to you, hey, Tim, we're going to do this. I know it's impossible, but let's break through the impossible. Let's achieve the impossible. Let's damn it. It will no longer be impossible. When I say those things to you, I grit my teeth and I become very forceful. When someone says, I'm going to make the impossible possible, you end up doing this kind of thing. But if I said to you, hey, you want to do this? You want to make 10 mil? How can we make that goal stupid? Now, the second I ask you that, you become a child and you start to gamify that challenge and ideas and concepts. I remember when they were interviewing Elon Musk and they said to him about, why is space? And he'd come off of PayPal. He was doing Tesla. He had Solar City. And they said to him about SpaceX. And they said, why is that your next thing? And he said, because I wanted to be. And they said, well, what do you know about space? And he said, I know it's there and I've got a goal. Now I just need to find out the middle bit. And that's the thing. So when you go for something stupid, the first thing that happens, and I'm looking at your face when I say that, you smile.
Yeah.
And you become a child. How can I gamify this? How many of these people do you know? How much you made last year? I made 100 grand. What's your goal next year? 120. If you're going to put effort into something, then why don't you make that goal 250 and fail and make 180?
Yeah. Shoot for the stars and land on the moon.
People sell themselves short. Very few people achieve their goals. So if your goal is $10 million and you fail at 9, what a fantastic failure.
What a great outcome. So what I heard there, Steve, is in going for stupid, it's all about the questions you ask. So a normal meeting, once you've got a brief at Bluefish, and anyone listening to this, once you've got a brief for a new product or a new promotion or a new marketing idea, you sit down and the normal situation would be, okay, how do we get this done, boys and girls? What do we got to do? What resources do we need? We got enough time? We got enough budget? All the sort of valid, rational questions. I think what I'm hearing from you is, well, you're asking some really interesting questions like, how do we make this a stupid outcome? And not in a dumb way, like stupid being incredible, amazing. How do you gamify it? Because again, making something a game all of a sudden becomes a whole lot more enjoyable, and potentially you're going to spend a lot more time doing it because, you look forward to it. It's a bit like a hobby. It reminds me of an interview I did with Phil McKenney, who at the time was Vice President of Innovation at Hewlett-Packard, and he'd come up, and it was the first podcast I'd ever listened to. It was called Killer Innovations. I think Phil's still doing it, actually. And the whole premise of Killer Innovations was to ask killer questions, and he had about 78 of them. And, how do we make this a stupid outcome is an example of a killer question, because what it does, it forces you to look at the problem from a different angle. And then you're going to get different, more richer results. So I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall at those Bluefish meetings when you do get a brief from a client to really challenge it. So then you come up with all these wacky ideas as a result of that internal meeting. How do you then present them to the client in a way that they're not going to think, oh, these boys and girls have lost the plot? Who else can we use?
So if I'm actually superseding and vastly overachieving on your request, who are you calling the next time you've got a request? That was I'm trying to choose my words carefully, but I can't.
Don't.
That was a stupid statement that you just made.
Thank you.
If you can over exceed your client's receipt of what they wanted by going beyond what they asked. You see, at the beginning of that, I said we need to avoid a transaction.
Yes.
Anybody in business, if you go in and someone says, hey, I want a yellow cake, don't give them a yellow cake, because that's just complete a transaction. And your competitors can do exactly that. But if you challenge them and go, hey, you want a yellow cake? Why? Oh, it's for my kid's birthday. Is yellow his favorite color? Yes. What other colors does he like? Red. Well, let's do some red cupcakes around that yellow cake. And if you exceed the expectations, you get something critically today called loyalty and attention. And it's that going above and beyond, which sadly people don't have in their business manual today.
It's unbelievable.
Someone says, I want X. It's ridiculous. I want X. There you go, sir. You got it. Will you write me a good review? Fuck will I? You've just given me what I asked for. Yeah. Go above and beyond, then I'll write a whole page on you. That's what it is. So that's why it's critical today. And let's bear in mind, I would say that probably, and I'm going to make a number up, out of the 100 requests we got thousands over 25 years of doing that concierge, but over the period of time, we probably failed on 80% of these stupendous over-the-top things that we planned. We probably got refused the mansion, the elephants, having Mick Jagger come in. We probably got declined on a good 80, 90%. But we never got Mick Jagger, but we got Elton John. Or we never got this, but we got the Pope. It was just, and bearing in mind, when the client had started at that level of request, and you had given him a request way in excess of what he asked for, that was achievable, they were always over the moon. And the funny thing is, every time you did that, your marketing budget declined 100%, because now you've got a client in a market, in a party, going, I did this last week with the rock band Journey or with the Ferrari Formula One team. And that crew of his friends, let's be serious, we hang around with like-minded people.
Yes.
We also hang around with the people with the same kind of banking status. So when they turn around, you go, you see that bald guy over there that looks as though he's going to beat you up or run you over with his bike? That's the guy that pulled it off. I would just sit there with my old-fashioned, growling at people that came towards me, and I would get people just flowing up going, hang on, you're the guy that did that with Bocelli? You're the guy that did that with Aston Martin? And I'll be like, buy me a drink and I'll tell you what we can do for you.
The man that can. What, do you still subscribe, Steve, to the very simple concept? So often when you're looking for the secret sauce of, wow, how does he do this? How do they do that? The answer comes back as a cliche and incredibly simple. Your answer to how do you get stuff done used to be, just ask.
Yeah.
Is this still the case?
It's still the case. And there's a
Can you make it? Can you glorify it a bit more, please?
Yeah, look, I'll take it even further.
Go for stupid.
I wrote an entire first chapter on this, and it startled me. You know, me and you spoke when I released my first book, and I was startled at how that went worldwide.
It's a great
This
book.
second one came out in October, and it was a book on annoyance. That's how it came out. And the first chapter in there, just to help people out, I had a client that said he wanted to have a dinner party that showed how powerful he was in Florence. Sorry, not dinner party, dining experience. And it was with his fiance, and it was going to be the first time he was meeting her mum and dad. And he just wanted to show off how connected he was. I ended up taking over the Accademia de Galleria that houses Michelangelo's David in Florence, set up a table of 6, and then halfway through his dinner, I had Andrea Bocelli come in and serenade him. Now, that's what I did as the ultimate Italian dinner. And I wrote about it, and I've spoken about it. But what happened, during that event was the kick in the tads. When I was talking to the curator of the museum, I had been so over the top about, I want this and I want this memory and this is the most amazing thing and I'd like to do it here. And they said yes. I was stunned. And when I spoke to the guy, I said to him, hey, and I was looking for ego. You know, he'd given me a bit of attitude and I was looking for a bit of an ego pump. And I said to him, all right, let me ask you, how come I managed to pull it off? And I was expecting him to go, no one's as connected as you, Steve. No one's as good looking. That would never be said. You know, all of those kind of things. He literally looked at me and he went, do you know, no one's ever asked.
Unreal.
And I had to fly back to America a few days later. On the plane, and this is exactly what I did, truth on truth, I made a note, a list, and it was about 30 to 40 amazing experiences I'd done with Hollywood actors, closing down museums, closing down penthouses, you know, houses that you don't think things could happen, but I had. People that I was working with, some of the most powerful things from NASA to Elon to all of these businesses. When I got home, I commenced a 6-month process where I contacted every single one of those people for 2 reasons. One, because I hadn't connected with them for like years and it was a good excuse to do it. But I wanted to get to the answer of this. And I said, hey, do you remember when we did this with that blockbuster movie? Do you remember when I had my client, you know, do this with the rock band? Do you remember? I just wanted to ask you, why did you let it happen? And absolutely everyone came back, not about the money, not about the positioning. They all came back with, well, you asked. No one's ever asked before. And I said to him, oh, so they've asked it? No one's asked. Do you remember when you're at the bar and there's this pretty woman at the bar and you want to go and ask her for a date, but you don't? Yeah. And the poor girl stands there all night because everyone's shit scared.
No one asks.
No one asks. And then the gimp walks over and goes, do you want a beer? And she's like, all right. You know, all of a sudden the ugly bugger has just got the girl because they dared to ask. And in business, we dare to ask in marketing. We dare to ask our clients, what more can I do for you? We dare to ask our relationships. Now, when I went through this, one of the things I did is I took my wife for breakfast one morning and I said to her, I want to ask you something very serious. And I said, you love me, yes? And she said, yes, I love you. And I went, how can I be a better husband to you? How can I be a better partner to you? How can I make our relationship? Now, we've celebrated, I think it's 28 years this year, something like that. You know, we've been together for a long time. Yeah, I'm very proud of that. But, how can I be better so I can feel maybe a bit more comfortable that there's going to be another 28? Yeah, and
Did she say be at home less?
She actually, there were a lot of things that came out. And some of the things, the flip of that, I travel a lot for my business. And she said to me, our house is covered. Our lifestyle is covered. I could do with you at home a little bit more. And I realized that I'm out traveling the planet, making money, going, hey, I'm the big boy. I'm the good husband. I'm bringing the bread in. But it wasn't what my wife wanted.
She wanted you.
She wanted me. And I couldn't believe it. I'm thinking I'm doing this that's good when actually it's detrimental to my relationship. But I thought to myself then, maybe had I not been through what I had been through with my clients and then that list, to dare to ask my wife, how many of you out there now are daring to ask? And you're working till 9 o'clock at night, you're working all hours, and you think, hey, I'm doing the good thing, but maybe your partner would put up with a little bit less cash if she had more of you.
Well, if you're defining success by wealth, then you are going to be that person working till 9, 10.
There's your problem.
There's your problem. Yeah, that's a beautiful story, Steve. Thank you for sharing that. You mentioned earlier you came back from that Florence event and you realised that just asking was everything. And then you had it confirmed by calling. I assume they were all the suppliers, all the bands and all the different brands and people that had done things for you over the years. You're very good at that. The conversations we've had previously, in fact, the very first conversation you and I had was about how to get all the referrals in the world. And that was by the very simple little technique of you travelled a lot, you stayed at nice hotels, so you did two things. You went down to reception and said, can I have, 500 envelopes and 500 of your letterhead, because you're staying at the Beverly Hills Hilton or wherever you're staying. And that was impressive. Then in the airline magazines, you might have had a client who loves Labradoodles and there's a perfume ad with a Labradoodle in it. So you'd rip that out, say, hey, haven't seen you for a while, and you'd send that off to them. I retell that story because you are very, very good at staying in contact. You're very good at just picking up the phone or putting pen to paper. Imagine that, and doing that. Many aren't. And I think because it sounds a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
It feels a little bit cold callish because you haven't spoken to these people for a while and they're going to go, what does he want? But what do you say to us business owners who haven't put a day aside and made 100 phone calls?
So I'm going to say, I'm hoping you didn't all do this, but you missed out on a fantastic opportunity just over a year ago. We had COVID and no one knew. Do you remember when COVID started and we all thought, oh, that's going to be 6 months and we'll have forgotten this? 2 years later, we're thinking, when the bloody hell the thing's going to end? So when it popped up, I thought to myself, hang on a minute. Every single person's at home. No one can fly. No one can travel. No one can go anywhere. Everyone's been kicked in the ankles and now hobbling. We didn't know what was going on. So I started randomly phoning up my people and FaceTiming them and texting them and going, hey, jump on this Zoom. You're not doing anything, so just jump on this Zoom. The amount of people that started jumping on that Zoom, because as woke as we become, as developed as we become, as evolved as we become, we're still primitive. We want to have a conversation between each other, and we want to connect, and we want to be heard, and we want to be challenged. Now, for 2 years, my target market, human beings with money, couldn't leave their house. And so it wasn't a case of, hey, I want to speak to Tim. Oh, Tim's actually traveling around the world at the moment. I know he's not. I know he's there because I know everyone's locked down on COVID. It was a brilliant opportunity. And I did something which was kind of a bit silly, but ended up going on for nearly 15 months, to the point that, I'll be honest with you, it started getting a bit tiresome. I said to everyone, and I said this within the first month of COVID, I went, look, on a Friday night at 5 o'clock, I pour myself an old fashioned and I sit in my garden and I ask myself, do I deserve this drink? Did I put enough into this week that I deserve this celebratory drink? Do I? I don't want to drink alone. So we're in COVID. Who'd like to join me on this Zoom call? And we'll ask each other that question. And I thought to myself, and this was the first time I found this out about Zoom, I thought to myself, 10 people would turn up, 15 people would turn up. I didn't know on the cap of Zoom, it was 500 people. I only knew that because on the first Friday, we had over 500 people turn up, ranging from a cup of coffee to a full-on bloody margarita, just wanting to connect.
Fantastic.
And we did that for every single Friday, and it went on for about 15 months.
That's fantastic.
And it was crazy. But that's just, how much marketing was there? I put it on Facebook. This is the Zoom, and it fluctuated. We had sometimes we'd have 75 people on there, but we couldn't go over 500 because I didn't want to put the money in. But then the other thing was, people were quick to register and jump on right at the beginning because they didn't want to be those people that are going, I'm sorry, there's not enough room for you to be in this meeting. And it became that. So it's the classic statement of when's the best time to plant an oak tree, 200 years ago or now. How about if every business owner out there on Tuesday morning decides to block off 45 minutes to phone 3 people that they've not phoned before?
I love it.
Every Tuesday. Now, this will be what happens. The first one will go through the voicemail because the person won't recognize the number. You'll leave a nice message. The second person will answer, and you'll end up having an entire conversation for 45 minutes, and you'll never make it to the third. And then the first person will text you or call you back going, hey, I got you. We haven't spoken for ages, and you'll end up having a random call at another time during that week.
Now, there's a couple of things there, Steve. I found it interesting you were too tight to pay for the improved Zoom package. I'm happy to do a whip around. And for those listening, Steve Sims at paypal.com is where you need to send your dollar coin donation. Very sad.
There's a GoFundMe account being set up, called Entitled Prick Lives in LA. But no, exactly, I didn't do it.
Keep Steve in old fashions. And the other part of that, on a more serious note, Steve, is a community. You did this. This is a COVID-inspired idea, which I totally get. It's not an idea that's now out of date. You're over it because you've been doing it for 15 months. I'll put my hand up here and say I'm not great at it either. Having podcasted for 14 years, I've got a Facebook tribe of about 3,000. I sort of feel like it should be 300,000. But my point here is any business that can sort of take the lead on creating some type of community, whether that be weekly drinks, whether that be a Facebook group, whether that be, I knew a cafe owner who used to take a group of select clients who were happy to pay to Italy to do cooking courses. There's community. So I think it's a really underdone part in our world today when everything is so friggin' virtual and is now being ambushed by artificial intelligence. Human community, there's the headline, mate.
We're in a world today where community is the lead. And look, I can give you a name of a company that you'll immediately go, oh yeah, Apple. Mm-hmm. Apple came out and all it focused on was you belonging. Are you the cool kid that has Apple, or are you one of those PC people?
Yeah. Yeah.
And now it's ballooned. Community is absolutely everything. Another thing is, not only do we yearn for community, today we're actually quite aggravated. The world, the planet, whether it be we're being lied to, whether it be politics, war, crypto, taxes, whatever, as a world, we've got a lot less tolerance than we had years ago because we were probably more ignorant to it. You say about I was over the 5 o'clock drinky poos. I wasn't the fact that I got over it, but it needed to evolve. And we actually evolved it into an online community we have called Sims Distillery. We actually took that drinking theme
Brilliant.
and also the concept of what a distillery is and turned it into an online community. So we actually evolved it, and we evolved it out of aggravation. Because me and you, we speak to very powerful people. We also, sadly, have spoken to whiners and whingers and those people that use excuses to direct their life. I decided, okay, I gave you 3 drinky poos on a Friday night, okay? All you had to do was turn up on that link and drink. There was no money in it. I didn't want any money. You didn't get any money. So then what we thought was, would you take that aggravation a little step further and would you pay into a community because your aggravation to become better at business, better at relationships, better at you, would you be willing to do it? So that drinky poos actually evolved. And we had a client that was an accountant. Now, accountants aren't known for their startling conversation techniques. And they actually said to me when I was coaching them, they went, well, we can't do that. And I said, well, no, you can. Every person in the planet wants to be heard, understand, and acknowledged. Try it. And I said, and this is how you're going to lead it off. You're going to lead off every Friday night drink with an accountant joke. You know, an accountant walks into the bar or 2 accountants sitting on a bench. Bingo. And you know they did that. And on the first call, guess how many people turned up?
Was he a tight accountant, or was he one willing to pay for the premium package on Zoom?
He was a tight ass. So
okay.
no,
under 500.
Two people turned up on the first call. It was him, his partner in the accountancy firm, and 2 clients turned up.
No.
Okay. They kept it going for 6 months. And are you ready for this?
How many?
They had to upgrade the Zoom package.
Love it.
All right. So that's the whole point. They got their community to talk to other people about their community. And in 6 months' time, he had to up his Zoom package.
Well, clearly, and there was a lot of value, obviously, in being on the call with him too. I mean, just the fact that
tips, updates, but the jokes, but also getting to know. We can listen to any other podcast other than you.
Yes.
Okay. Are they listening to the podcast because of the guests? Well, Steve Sims has been on a load of other podcasts. Or are they listening to this because you asked the questions that they want to hear the answers to?
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah, and I always say, I mean, people buy from people. Like, like this is not the best business marketing podcast known to man. I pride myself. Well, yeah, I mean,
There's the quote.
Look, there it is. Yeah, this is the best business podcast known to man.
It is.
But what I try to do, just to drive that point home, is that whilst it isn't the best, I have found a sweet spot between great guests and both of us educate and entertain. We don't educate 100% of the time. You and I aren't sitting here just wagging the finger going, you must do this, you must do that, we did this. But we also entertain by telling stories, the odd joke, and between those two things, it lands. And I think people have to remember, if they're listening to this and going, oh, this has been done before, it's too late to start a community, all that kind of stuff. No, it's not.
Oh, no.
People buy from people. It's not about the fact that there's 8 million other communities out there. You've got Sims Distillery. I love the fact, because I was going to ask you, how do you quantify the outcome of those pandemic-induced 5 o'clock drinks on a Friday, which I don't think you ever set out to want to quantify.
No.
But hey, you've turned that into a great business with Sims Distillery. I love that, Steve. You did these speakeasies. I don't know how old they are, but my research shows me that you were doing these speakeasies and you visited brothels and high security prisons. Can you explain to us what is a speakeasy and what a Steve Sims speakeasy is before we go into brothels and prisons?
I will answer that by telling you how it started.
Good.
Okay. So I had a daughter, well, not had, I haven't killed her. I have a daughter, and at the time she was 18 years old, which means that she was very close to death on many, many days and many occasions. And it was coming up to my birthday, and she was in the middle of a turned into Beelzebub period of her life. And it was not a very comfortable. Anyone with a daughter knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Got one.
There you go. And if you're sitting at home and you've got a 12-year-old daughter and you go, it won't happen to me.
Yep.
Yes, it will, mate.
Yep.
But it was coming up to my birthday, and I didn't want my daughter to have to be two-faced. We weren't getting on, but I didn't want to have her sitting the other end of the table, seething at me, going, "Happy birthday, Dad." You know, I didn't want that kind of moment. So I went on Facebook and I went, "Who would like to spend 2 days with me in San Diego, and I'll tell you stuff?" And that was it.
Just like that.
And I put a PayPal link on there, and it was for $2,000. So I'm thinking, okay, is my credibility strong enough to, get people to turn up? I've not even told you whereabouts it is in San Diego, but I have put a PayPal link there. And I think by the end of about maybe 2 weeks, we had 7 people sign up. And I phoned up one of my mates, and because he was the first signer up. And I phoned up my mate and I went, "Hey, Tim," his name was Tim, funny enough, in Vegas. And I said, "Hey, Tim, I saw you signed up for the event." We didn't have a title for it. I didn't even have a location. And I said, "I saw you signed up for the event." And I said to him, literally this, "What's your problem?" And it was meant in British humor to mean, "Are you nuts?"
Yeah, got it.
But the mind hears what it wants to hear. And he heard it as a question asking him what his issue was today. And he literally turned around and went, "Do you know, that's a great question. I'm really focusing on this marketing." And he started to tell me his problem. And I'm like, hang on a minute. That's not what I asked. But hey, if I know what you need, I can look on my phone up a guy and get you the answer. So I went through all 7 and I dulled down there. I went, "Hey, you've just signed up for an event that you know nothing about. What's aggravating you so much that you think this place has the answer? And if it has the answer, what's the problem you've got?"
I love it.
And they told me. And so I'm like, wow, this. And then they started saying, "Oh, you need to go to this event." And people are like, "What is it?" I don't even know what it's called. And then I told someone about this that signed up, asked him what. And the guy turned around, he said, "Steve, I like this." He said, "Because it's typically you. You don't know where it is. You don't know what time it's going to start. Hell, it's like a speakeasy." And I went, "It is."
It is.
And it took 2 weeks, and then we went back in, edited it on Facebook, San Diego Speakeasy. And then I had a lot of people saying to me, "Oh, is it a bar?" No. It's the greatest mastermind that you know nothing about. And then that became the tagline. So you guys are all in Australia, so nobody's coming to this, okay? So I don't want anyone pitched on this. But please look up simsspeakeasy.com and see how remarkably little information there is for an event that we sold out. Now,
I'm
that's
going there as you speak.
Yeah. Now, that does 2 things. One, it's proof that I've built up credibility, and it's proof that I've built up a community.
Yes.
But then when people say to me, like, let's say for argument's sake, I was doing this in Australia, and someone said to me, "Oh, thanks for asking that question, Steve. I want to do a podcast, but I know nothing about it." Well, then surely my next phone call would be to you, the leading podcast host in Australia.
Thank you very much.
If not the world. And I would say, "Tim, could you please come to my speakeasy and we'll just do a fireside chat on what's the important lessons you need to know in order to have a successful podcast?" And I bring these people in. I brought in like racing car drivers, superstars, rock stars, Navy SEALs. I brought in Sammy the Bull, who was John Gotti's hitman from the Mafia.
Oh, wow.
I brought in all of these people and here's the good thing. as it's gone on, and we're in, I think it's 6th year now, and our next one's somewhere. Again, I'm not pitching it.
It's New Orleans, 6th and 7th of November, just in case you're wondering.
Okay, there you go. But we never tell anybody who it's going to be. And as you'll see from there, you don't know where it is.
I've just got to, for the sake of those listening, I've just gone to simsspeakeasy.com. There's a logo, there's a date and a location. There's 2 buttons. I'm in via credit card or I'm in via crypto. It's $2,000 per person. And then there's one sentence. There is one sentence. Also, and it's not a very friendly sentence. All Speakeasy purchases are final and non-refundable in the event of unforeseen circumstances. It's one of those. So honestly, if you came across that and you didn't know Simsy, you'd go, this guy's mad. If you came across that and knew Simsy at $2,000 for a weekend in New Orleans, meeting some pretty amazing people, mate, that's awesome. I just love this as a business. I think I'm going to do one and you're going to come to the first.
And yes, do you know, you've just made me very happy. There's nothing that's hard in what's there, is there? And I pray to God, everyone that's listening on this show now steals this idea, rips it off, mimics it, and emulates it in your neighborhood.
Go for stupid.
Because you absolutely should. You absolutely should. It's simple ideas. And here's the beautiful thing. I've not promised you fine dining. I've not promised you a luxury location. You have no idea. And that's where the answer to your next bit in. When we did the first one, I thought, okay, and I think the first one we ended up with like about 20 people. And it escalated it up to about 100. And then we found that was too much to be really close with everyone. So we now cap it at 40 and we have 10 special guests and speak. So it ends up being between 40 to 55
That's
people.
pretty significant, 10 guests.
Yeah. Special. These are, head of the SEALs or something. These are pretty spectacular kind of guests that we bring in. But the point is we found out that the local hotel that we were going to do the first one in, they wanted to charge us for the location, and then there's the F&B, the food and beverage. It became really expensive. And then I found out my mate had a motorcycle garage, and he went, it's empty because I haven't moved in yet. You can have that. And I went, great, $500 to shove some chairs in there. We'll have it there. So we actually came up with the concept, which has bit us in the arse. We came up with the concept that conference centers in hotels are where all good ideas go to die.
Yes.
So we wanted to hold it in kind of like creative, weird, wacky locations, which at the time gave us like a free bird to be anywhere we wanted. But we ended up doing it in a loft that overlooked the Hudson. We ended up doing it in the Bunny Ranch brothel in Nevada. We ended up doing it in SpaceX's headquarters. We ended up doing it in the Tesla plant in Fremont. We ended up doing it
Okay, let me interrupt there. For those who, including me, who are going, wouldn't mind running a speakeasy, mate, you've got access to all these. I think I know what you're going to say. Timbo, just ask. But let's just dig a little bit deeper there. None of us, getting SpaceX, getting access to Google's headquarters or whoever, not as easy for the great unwashed.
Agreed.
I don't even know if there's a question there, but that's a feeling I have.
Well, it's not so much a question, it's more of a mindset. You're not going to get it the first time, okay? And we didn't. Remember I said the first one was in a bike garage. Okay, if I'd have gone to Tesla, or if I'd have gone to any of these other places, that have probably gone, what is a speak? And I'd have ended up speaking for and it wouldn't have happened. But I've had 5 years on it. Getting a really cool location now is easier because I've got the credibility and the history to prove it. So in order to get on the roof, you've got to step on the first run of the ladder.
There you go.
So do it in your back garden. The next one, go through Airbnb and rent a penthouse. The next time, do it on a bloody boat that doesn't leave the harbour. You can do all of these different kind of places. And here's the thing. If you really vet the clientele, try and make sure that the clientele maybe have something in common with the location. Like when we did it in Tesla, hey, I'm bringing along 40 people. Every single one of those people can afford it. It's just your job to tell them why they should be driving a Tesla. And they were like, great, I'm giving them a target market. I did it for Julie. I did one that was on the rooftop of the Louis Vuitton store in Beverly Hills. And they were like, why should we let you have the rooftop of Louis Vuitton? And I'm like, because I'm going to give you people that can buy your store.
Captive.
The only reason they won't is because you haven't validated why they should.
Love it. I love it. So you went to Bunny Ranch Brothel, which I think is the brothel that Louis Theroux spent an entire weekend in from the BBC, and I'm sure it must have appeared in a Tarantino film at some point.
Oh, God,
that's irrelevant. You spent some time with the late, one of the most famous call girls in the world. I think her name is Air Force Amy.
Air Force Amy and Alice Little, yeah.
And Alice. Any particular? You spent an afternoon. Tell us about the brothel visit and what was What was the big takeaway?
Yeah, you'll be surprised. So what we did was I did Speakeasy Reno, and what I do is I go right. Once you've paid, I say this is the hotel, this is the discount code. All of our people are staying there. Be ready for Monday morning 8 a.m. And then I tell you where you're going to go. But in this situation, I had a bus turn up. So everyone gets in the bus, and I took them into the Gigafactory, Elon Musk's Gigafactory in Reno, the largest self-sustainable building in the planet. The only one that's going to beat that is the one that he's building in China. All right? So we got to speak with the executives. We got to speak to the design technicians. We got to speak to all of these people about how Elon does business, how you look at things, all of those kind of stuff. Then we had food. We had these food trucks coming because it's in the middle of nowhere, back on the bus, and then I took them to the Bunny Ranch. My thread, and I have to admit it was kind of a thin thread, was I was going to introduce you to the newest industry in the world in the morning, and then in the afternoon, the oldest industry in the world. So that was my thread. But then what I did was I brought it down to the ability to communicate and the power of communication. And what really stunned me, which was why I wanted to get people into the Bunny Ranch, and we had, I think, like 7 of the girls lined up, including Air Force Amy. The amount of girls that didn't actually sleep with their clients, didn't have sex with them. And I was like, hang on a minute, I'm not being funny, but if I pay for a prostitute and then I don't kind of have sex, isn't that kind of like trade description or something like that? And they said, no. You're paying for connection. And in today's world, guys are scared to go up to a woman and actually comment on, you look pretty, you look nice. He said, we have guys here that come here, will order a pizza and we'll watch the game. Because in this world today, as we can connect in so many different ways, we've never been more disconnected.
Back to community, mate. You remind me of an interview I did with a fellow. He was over that way, and it wasn't Reno, but he made his money from a Buffalo Wings franchise, which he sold. He became a yogi, and then developed a business in New York called the Cuddlist, and he sold 1 hour cuddles. And
I heard about that company. Yeah,
he taught health practitioners, chiros, masseurs, dietitians, an additional revenue stream to sell 1 hour cuddles. And his whole premise was, as a human race these days, we are underloved and oversexed. And his business went bananas, and again, this is all, again, another community thread.
Yeah, it was kind of the thing that caught me, and I'll never forget this, because we had one of our attendees was one of the heads of Tiffany's marketing department. And they taught all of the salespeople how to sell Tiffany goods. And there was one of the prostitutes was up there. And we had these girls lined up there. And, of course, they had all the gear on because they were working, And they were up there and they were chatting away. And they said, we don't sell sex. We sell the titillation, the idea, the excitement. We sell all of that. Mm-hmm. And one of the girls that was, as I say, one of our attendees from Tiffany, she turned around and she said, yeah, we've never sold an engagement ring in any of our places. Uh-huh. And one of the girls turned around and went, you're Tiffany, that's what you do. So what do you mean? And she said, let me show you. So she goes up on stage, she pulls out this little box. I think it was like a matchbox or something. It wasn't a ring box. She pulls out this matchbox and she said, let me show you this. Let me ask you this. How would your partner feel when they saw this? And they did that. She said, we have never ever sold...
Steve just pretended to open up the matchbox.
Sorry, I forgot we're on a podcast. Yeah, so she pretends to open up a box and she says, you know, what would the reaction be when they see this? She said, we're not selling the ring. We're selling the reaction. And she said, that's what we do. You know, when you do that, make sure it's in the box and all that kind of stuff. So in today's world, we're actually selling connection. I don't care if you're a hairdresser. I don't care if you're a dentist. I don't care if you're a mechanic. My mechanic on my motorcycles recently just moved from one garage to another garage. I've got no loyalty to the garage. I've got my loyalty to my mechanic because he knows the ins and outs of my bikes. I don't care where he moves to. He's looking after my bikes. So today, we want that connection more than ever.
It's just such a great reminder. Connection. And if you were to talk to a perfume manufacturer, you had the lady from Tiffany's, she's selling the reaction. Perfume is selling hope. And it's a really interesting question for all of us to ask. Emotionally, what are we selling? Forget that you're selling widgets. Forget that you're selling whatever it is. Emotionally, what are you selling? Steve, I noticed the sun as we start to talk. Steve's sitting in his garage, I think. Or where are you sitting, mate?
I'm actually just in like a little summer house, and the sun has been slowly going down as we've been rabbiting away.
In your eyes. You got it in your eyes, Pedal. Are you okay for another 10 minutes?
I'm okay. I may move over slightly, actually.
Put some sunnies on, mate. It'll make you look even meaner.
Here you go. I'm just going to move over and get out of this. There you go.
Steve, okay, let's leave a Bunny Ranch brothel, as much as I don't want to, and let's go into a maximum high security prison, which I think was also part of another speakeasy that you did.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. What did you learn?
Ooh, we learn everything by mistakes. Sadly, that's what entrepreneurs do. We don't learn it's a bad idea until it kicks us in the testes. I had a friend of mine that actually offered me the chance to go to a level 4 maximum security prison 2 hours outside of LA. And I said, yeah, I'll go up there. And the only reason I said yes, and I've declared this inside, bearing in mind I've been inside just to tell people, I think 26 times I've been into a level 4 maximum prison. And I have taken just over 150 entrepreneurs in there with me. And I went in this first time, and the only reason I went in there was because I would be able to take pictures up until I got to the yard where they confiscate my phone, and this would make me look really tough on social. Because like Steve Sims, he was in a level 4. You're not there for parking tickets. This is like gangland, head of legal crime. This is level 4 is big boy stuff.
Yeah.
And I did it all for me. And then I got into this room and I met a bunch of people that were positive and appreciative and respectful. And they had made mistakes, but they didn't want that to be their obituary.
These are inmates.
These are inmates. They didn't want their mistakes to define who they were. They wanted it to refine them. And they wanted to come out and be a positive influence on their family, their neighborhood, and they're like, hey, that's what I did because I was stupid. I was on drugs. I was desperate, whatever. That doesn't have to be me. And they would look to people like us to go, how do you open up a business? How do you... And they were curious people that wanted to do better. And I did that on that day. And I was a changed man within an hour of being in this prison. And so I came out, and this was the dumb thing. Right at the end of it, there's a company called D5 Ventures. And what they do is they do these courses in prisons all over America where they provide you with all of the books and education you need to be able to, when you leave, start your own business. And at the end of it, D5 went, look, if this has changed you and it's been good, we're looking for donations. This is a donation-backed thing. If you could donate $20, maybe $50. And I'm like, are you kidding? I said, this is the worst thing I've ever heard. We'll meet for lunch next week. And I left. And I contacted the guy and I went down to see him and I said, this is how it's going to run. You're going to let me know when you're going to go. I'm going to pitch it to my community that I'm going to put you in an uncomfortable, dark situation to benefit your growth. You're going to meet people that you're going to converse with and understand and relate to that have done some serious crime. I'm not asking you to forgive them. They don't want to be forgiven. They acknowledge they did stupid shit, but they can make a good life for themselves in their future. And you're going to be able to converse with people that you would never normally be able to converse with. So if you're concerned about giving the Monday morning meeting, phoning up someone you haven't phoned up for a little while, feeling a little bit down because your Facebook ads didn't work that week and you're not buying a beach house, let me put you into an environment where you are going to think you're the richest person on the planet because you have choices. And on top of that, you're going to pay $500 to go to prison. And that's what I did. I have to be honest with you. I thought to myself, maybe I'll get 2 or 3 people. We got 40.
No.
We got 40 people. We maxed out on that bus. We got 40 people that were willing to take a punt. And they went in and they went into prison and they could actually relate and they could understand and they could see where it had gone wrong. And if maybe they had a mum that stood up for them, maybe if they had a mate that had stood up for them, maybe if they weren't on drugs, maybe whatever the maybe could have been, this guy in front of me could have been something spectacular. And now he's got to wear that shame that you're an inmate.
What a great story.
And so we started doing that and we've been taking people in there for like 5 years now.
Is part of the speakeasy or separate?
It's separate, but we actually surprised a bunch once by saying, oh, get on the bus, we're taking you somewhere cool. And we took him to prison. That was quite delightful.
Steve, is there a time when you've ever got ahead of yourself and gone, oh, geez,
yeah,
bad decision?
Many times. I have to admit, everyone thought I was a rock star by taking them to Elon Musk's Gigafactory. But we actually had a current High Court judge that was on that trip that when the bus pulled up outside the Bunny Ranch, he actually demanded a car take him away back to the hotel because he couldn't be seen walking around a brothel. And there were a few people that, let's just say, there was one woman there that was a mad fan of mine that actually bought her son a ticket to a speakeasy. And so in the morning at the Gigafactory, apparently she was all happy with me. In the afternoon, not so much. Never heard from her again.
Funny that.
So I think there's been a few times where I've gone, maybe I shouldn't have done that one. But personally, I got so many lessons on the art of communication from these prostitutes, on how they hold themselves, how they handle themselves, how they speak, the eye contact, the firmness of a handshake, all of these kind of things that we don't think about.
Well, their whole intention is to get you to come again. Ladies and gentlemen, Tim Reid.
Well put.
Sorry. It's late in the interview, mate. No one will hear it. Simsy, it's always a pleasure, mate. We could go forever. Community and experience and ask are the 3 big things I've got from you today, are the 3 big things I got from you last time I spoke, and are the 3 big things that I got you from the first time I spoke. And that's meant to be a compliment because the fundamentals don't change, mate.
They don't.
Yeah, we've got ChatGPT. Yeah, we've got TikTok. Yeah, there'll be some bright, shiny object on the horizon, which you and I will both have a little look at out of the corner of our eye and go, well, might want to get the basics, the fundamentals right first. And I think you nail it, mate. And well done on your on the courage to be consistent.
I appreciate it. Yeah, and you're totally right. It doesn't change. And I promise, I guarantee, if anyone out there listening just does an actions badly, one of those elements consistently for 6 weeks, you will see a monumental shift in your mindset, the reception you get from your clients, your people, your workforce, even your family. You know, it will make a shift. And here's the best thing, you'll like that shift. And so you'll do it again.
Steve D. Sims with 1M.com is where you'll find him. Simsy, I'll threaten to come on one of your speakeasies next year, and I'm threatening, I'll put it out there, if anyone's got this far into our conversation and likes the idea of me holding a speakeasy, I'll do it. putting it out there. Go for stupid.
Here's the thing, my boy. You put it out there, I'll actually tell people about it, and if the dates align, you'll have me as an attendee.
Bang! You're a good fella, Simsy. Thanks, brother.
Look after yourself, pals. Keep doing what you do.
Well, there you go, team. Longtime friend of this podcast, Steve Sims. I love talking to that fellow. He's genuine, he's real, he's honest, he doesn't pull punches, and he's got the experience. He's got the track record, which is so important. There's too many gurus out there. I use the air quotes for that. Steve's the real deal. Hey, if you loved his approach to business and life, do me a favor and tell him. Reach out to him on Twitter. Reach out to him on LinkedIn. He would love to hear that you heard him on this show and what you thought. Hey, what are your thoughts about running a speakeasy? I'm certainly tempted, and I know enough of the right people to make it interesting. I'm sort of umming and ahhing about it. If you're keen, no obligation, but send us an email to tim@timreid, reid.com.au, tim@timreid, reid.com.au, and let me know your thoughts on the speakeasy, because I am tempted to run one. Hey, now, if you'd like to join the discussion about this episode, then head over to Facebook and join the Small Business Big Marketing Tribe. Also join my Small Business Owners membership over at patreon.com/marketing podcast. Let's get the discussion going, and I'll share some further insights with my Patreoners as well. Righto, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. All right, team, it's time to take action. It's time to go for stupid. If you've learned something there, if you feel inspired, please action it, because then it'll become real and might just serve your business in a very, very positive way. If you can support the work I do for small business owners, I'd love you to join my Patreon membership over at patreon.com/marketing podcast. First 7 days are free for the silver membership, which is only $47 a month, tax deductible, and I can assure you worth every cent. Next week, you and I meet a niching expert who's an authority on category creation and category design, sharing principles, frameworks, and case studies for those of you who want to be radically different. So a bit of a continuation of the theme that we started with Steve today. If you enjoyed today's episode, please hit the subscribe button on your podcast app, where you'll find 649 more chats with successful founders. Big thanks to Sam Heathcote for stitching this episode together, and for in-house rockstar Lockie Doley for the music bed. But most importantly, a big thanks to you, the motivated business owner, for lending me your ears, for making the time to take a listen to what I produce and hopefully actioning it. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you doing that. Until next time, may your marketing be the absolute best marketing. Bye for now.